By the spring of 1865, Vermont sent 1/10 of its entire population to fight for the Union in the Civil War. Among them, a young man from Glover. Hear his story today on Across the Fence. Hello, Vermont. I'm Amy Finley. Everyone who knows me knows that I love history. I am the annoying person at the party who will corner you and talk to you for hours or 10 uncomfortable minutes about the French Revolution. And I am currently doing a lot of reading to prepare for the American semi-quincentennial, that's 250 years, next year. An era I know less about is the American Civil War. So I am thrilled to welcome my guest today, Tyler Alexander, author of the new book, If I Can Get Home This Fall, a story of love, loss, and a cause in the Civil War. Tyler is a native of the Northeast Kingdom who currently teaches American history and government at Champlain Valley Union High School. Tyler Alexander, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to talk to you today. So you describe your book as a love story. Whose love story is it?
It's a love story between two individuals from the town of Glover, Vermont, named Dan Mason and Harriett Clark, who were 22 and 19 when the Civil War began, and then would be separated by the war for the next 4 years, and maintained a relationship through the aid of pen, as Dan liked to say. So that is very compelling and a timeless love story, and they were madly in love. I think it's fair to say.
Madly in love, and at a time that was so tumultuous and tearing for people.
Absolutely.
It's a great story. Okay, so tell us a little bit more about Dan and his eventual wife, right?
Yes.
Harriett. Okay,
yes.
Tell me a little more about them.
Dan enlisted in the 6th Vermont Infantry at the beginning of the Civil War, in Company D specifically, which was recruited from Orleans County, and my own ancestors was in that same unit, so that's how I came across the story in the first place. And he served in that unit until early 1864 and contemplated whether or not to re-enlist. That was a major question for soldiers in those units, and eventually he did, much to Harriet's chagrin. It's clear that she did not want him to re-enlist, and he had come home 3 times throughout the course of the war on furloughs or leaves of absence. And on the first visit home, he wrote to her after he got back to Virginia that I am cured of the re-enlist fever, and I can't bear the thought now, feeling as I do, having just been home and seen her after not for the last 2 years. But that's exactly what he did when he got back to the front, as a matter of pride and honor, patriotism, and as he explained to her, I can't go home as long as there's war in the land. And he said there's something wild and exciting about a military life that civil life cannot give. There's something about it that makes it bewitching.
Ooh, goodness. Okay, I guess I can imagine that. You know, you speak so vividly about them, and this is not a work of fiction. This is nonfiction. You are actually working from the letters between Dan and Harriett. So this is, a lot of the book is them in their own words. Their love story and the story of their experiences during the Civil War are unfolding in their own words. You have a letter, one of the letters with they're created and they're recreated in the book. Do you want to read us an excerpt from one of Dan's letters?
Absolutely. This will give you just a sense of his style.
And when was this one written?
This was in July of 1865, so after the war had ended, but he's still on active duty in Texas. Which is a whole story that I've explained.
There's a lot in the book. People will need to read in order to get the whole story.
It's a little known campaign that had a lot to do with racial politics, but he told Harriett how much he wanted to come home, and after surviving the entire war, he was totally preoccupied with the idea of resuming civilian life, and he had come home in March of 1865 on his 3rd leave of absence and been married.
That's when they married.
And then had to go back to the front. And after his marriage, his letters are even more intimate, I would say, than they had been prior. And here's one example. He said, "How can I express my love to you? Words fail to convey my feelings. It is useless to try. But my precious one, if I can get home this fall, we will renew the honeymoon so suddenly brought to a close last spring, and we will just visit and live so happy if we can both be well we will have just as good a time as ever was had in this world. O woman, virtuous woman, how near an angel you can approximate.
It's so beautiful. Like the writing is so lush. I love
Very
that.
much so.
And there's a tension that hangs in there because there is a question, which is what you picked up on in the book, if I can get home this fall. I'm not going to give anything else away to the readers, but there is, you want to read in order to find out their fate. Let's talk a little bit about writing the book. How did you become such a Civil War buff?
From a very early age, the Civil War is the greatest conflict in our history, the most traumatic, the most polarizing event in our history. And I think I was enraptured by the Ken Burns series that aired in 1990. That's one of my first childhood memories of being exposed to the Civil War, watching it with my father, and then visiting Gettysburg and a number of other sites thereafter. And hearing about the war from the top down, from the perspectives of Abraham Lincoln or U.S. Grant or Robert E. Lee. But I really became interested in learning more about the experiences of people from the bottom up, including people in my community here in Vermont, and what were they thinking?
Right. Which then, so how were you led to Dan and Harriet? Because in Dan, you have exactly that, someone from your own home community. How did you find them?
Yeah, I had an ancestor who served from Glover, and he sent 5 letters home to his brother that we still have. And they are fascinating, but there's only 5 of them. And at one point I had thought about trying to compile his letters into some sort of narrative, but there just wasn't enough to work with. And so then I encountered Dan Mason's letters, who served in the same unit.
Where did you find these?
In the Vermont Historical Society.
Okay, so in the Vermont Historical, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm going to kind of coach you through, because I happen to know a little bit of this backstory. You'd also become aware of Dan because of a headstone that you'd seen with your father at some point in time.
Right, we were visiting the gravestone of my ancestor.
In Glover.
In Glover, on Father's Day in 2007. And my dad took me to show me Dan Mason's headstone, which he'd seen earlier. It's a very impressive stone, and it lists
all of his battles.
All of the engagements he fought in, and including Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville, Antietam, Gettysburg, Petersburg. So to anybody who knows anything about the Civil War, that's an impressive...
How did you know that his letters were at the Vermont Historical Society, and how many letters are there?
There are close to 100, and I think I first learned about them during the sesquicentennial celebration of the Civil War.
Such a hard word, yes.
Where the Vermont Historical Society had digitized some of them and published the transcriptions on their website. And then I thought, oh, wow, I need to read these. And sure enough, as soon as I started looking through them, I realized this is it.
This was it. Well, I mean, it's almost like the story writes itself at that point.
Absolutely.
What was it like to handle Dan's letters? Were you allowed to go into the Historical Society and touch them with your bare hands? Wow, that's fascinating.
Absolutely, and you really get a sense of who this person is. You get a sense of the style, the language, just being able to have that tangible connection to the past.
Did you read them in any particular order?
Chronologically.
You did read them chronologically. Okay, so the story was unfolding for you too.
Absolutely, and I know, of course, about how the Civil War unfolds on the national scale, but I did not know what to expect from this particular soldier from letter to letter. So it was really, every letter was a thrill to read. And
you know, here's a kind of a question I've always wondered. How did, and you're a historian, you're a history teacher, so I'm assuming you can answer this. How did letters make it from the field to their recipients, and vice versa?
The U.S. Postal Service was amazing. They were very efficient, and it took about a week or so for letters to get from Vermont to Virginia and vice versa. And it was so efficient that often civilians at home would send soldiers in the field care packages, which would include fresh fruits and vegetables and perishable goods, butter and cheese, maple sugar, of course. And those were very much
So we had
appreciated.
same-day delivery practically before we ever had same-day delivery. I'm kidding.
It,
but yeah.
it was very impressive.
Yeah. You know, themes often emerge in primary source materials. So, like I've done a lot of American Revolutionary War reading, and something that becomes very clear is there was a problem with shoes. Was there anything about, no one had shoes. Was there any things like that that emerged from his letters that also helped you understand the experiences of the Civil War better?
Absolutely. There's so much detail about the everyday life of a soldier, not just combat. Of course, there's plenty of descriptions of combat, which are very harrowing and graphic, too. I was surprised by how graphic the descriptions of death are. But also the experience of carrying 8 days worth of rations in your haversack, in your knapsack, with the straps digging into your shoulders.
The physicality. With
60 rounds of ammunition and heavy wool uniform, and marching for 20 miles and trying to get a few hours of sleep, and then reveille at 3 a.m. and no coffee, maybe you have a chance to have a couple pieces of hardtack, but then you're on the march again. And so that hardship and...
It sounds like it really came alive.
Yes, absolutely. You can't help but admire the people who volunteered for that.
Yeah. Was there a larger story about Vermont and the war that you also hoped to tell in this book?
Well, again, I didn't start out with any sort of agenda in mind or argument or thesis. I followed the evidence where it led me, but
As a good historian.
the overwhelming amount of evidence pointed to the fact that Vermonters deeply cared about abolitionist principles and were ahead of the Lincoln administration in terms of supporting policies that Lincoln was initially reluctant to, like arming black troops, like abolishing slavery everywhere immediately. And Vermont was strongly Republican. Our governors, our congressional delegation, our state legislature, 29 out of Vermont's 30 state senators were Republican. And I think it's fair to say the Republican Party then was very different than it is now.
Right, it's Party of Lincoln at that time.
The Party of Lincoln, and there were civilians back home here and soldiers in the field really pushing the Lincoln administration to adopt more aggressive measures. And you see that especially when the draft is debated in late 1862, early 1863. There's no sympathy for the Democratic Party, which was much more reluctant to adopt those measures.
Right.
And Republicans in Vermont, both soldiers and civilians, were
such a great story.
Denounced caution in very clear terms that we have an opportunity to.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story. I encourage everyone to read it. It's so beautifully written and so well researched, really. So the book is If I Can Get Home This Fall, a story of love, loss, and a cause in the Civil War. Look for it where you buy books or visit your local library and talk with a librarian. Tyler Alexander, thank you so much for joining me today, helping me learn more about the Civil War. Again, I'm going to fall right back into this book. As always, Vermont, thank you for learning and exploring with me today, and thanks to the team that makes Across the Fence possible. I'm Amy Finley. This is Across the Fence. Come back and let's learn and explore again tomorrow.